In this lesson 22, we're going to discuss the router's ability to group different items. And those items would be interfaces and users. Over here on the left, you'll notice we have a Winbox view of a rule set. This rule set is actually going to be used in the next lesson, lesson number 23. But we're only going to use two of these rules today to explain this grouping concepts, because you need to grouping concepts to understand lesson 23, which is the advanced firewall rules lesson. So let's get started with this thing. Okay, so let's get started with filter rule number 6. We go over here and we open up, first we look at it, it says allows clients and Wi-Fi users to access the internet. So what's going on here? Well, under general, it's a forward chain. Down here in interface is the LAN and the out interface is the WAN. So if those are conditions met by the packets, if it's coming in from the LAN, it's destined to go out the WAN, then that meets that condition. There are no other conditions, including tracking conditions down here at the bottom. Should say connection states. If I get the right one. So there's no other conditions. It's just if it's from the LAN, it's going out to WAN, and that's no problem. So we accept that. But there's more to this story. So what is a LAN? Well, the LAN, if you go up here to interfaces, and you see the interface list, here's what a LAN is. A LAN has two bridges assigned to it, bridge and bridge 1 Wi-Fi, which we discussed earlier. And the WAN has one port assigned to it, Ether 1. So when we're talking about the LAN, we're talking about both of these bridges. And that's why the name up here, it says allows clients and Wi-Fi's to both access the internet. Okay, so now we know what a WAN is and a LAN is. So what's the bridge concept here? Well, we have two bridges we mentioned earlier. And the bridges are assigned to these ports. So the WLAN is assigned to bridge 1 Wi-Fi, and all the rest is assigned to bridge. So later on we'll have to make this distinction. Right now we don't have to, because we're using both bridges. And we already know about the networks, right? I think it's under here. IP. Well, the IP addresses are here. That's the addresses that comprise these two bridges. We know about that. There's one more here, the DHCP servers, which we know we have two servers. One serves address group 75, the other group serves address group 88. But what does that mean? Well, if you look, our addresses under IP define those two groups as this network. And we don't need to know the individual users. For example, under the filter rules, we could in fact go to the address list and say, oh, this is a group of clients, this is a group of Wi-Fi users. We don't need that extension at this time because we already know that they're part of the LAN to go out to the WAN. So that's how this stuff all interacts here, all these different forms of grouping. You know, we had the WAN group and the LAN group, and that consisted of bridges, and the bridges consisted of IP addresses, and the IP addresses were groups of users. And the users were in groups of addresses. But in this particular rule number 6, we don't care about the users being in groups of addresses. So that explains rule number 6 and how it revolves around these concepts here of grouping. Next, we're going to take a look at filter rule number 14, or where you see 14 towards the bottom. It says allow clients to access the router. Well, there's an implied statement that it also does not allow Wi-Fi users to access the router. We don't want that to happen. So what's unique about this rule is that we're using an interface of the bridge we're not using an in-interface list of the LAN because we don't want both parties. We don't want both groups of users to be able to access the router. So instead of saying LAN here, we instead said bridge over here. And what this means is we'll access packets coming from the interface bridge, and we don't care where it's going. They can go anywhere they want to, and we'll accept that. But if the packet came from bridge 1 dash Wi-Fi, then that's not part of this match. Therefore, it wouldn't be matched. Therefore, it wouldn't happen. Notice the input rules start right here. And we establish related on track. We drop invalid. We accept ICMP. We accept loopback. We accept these two port things we'll discuss in lesson 23. So there is no rule match if the packet came from bridge 1 dash Wi-Fi. Therefore, they're not allowed to access the router. Notice how we conveniently did that without using any drop rule. We know for a fact that if the input chain is from the interface of bridge, we don't care about any other conditions. And there is no advance because we're just saying we're going to let the people from the interface of bridge packets be accepted. So that rule does a lot more than it looks like it does. It distinguishes between Wi-Fi users and clients, even though it just talks about clients. That's what I mean by acceptance type of rules. The rule accepts what you want. It doesn't try to reject things you don't want. If you just don't list the things you don't want, then they can't be accepted. So this is the philosophy used in these rules. And this will show up in our next lesson, lesson number 23. So that concludes this lesson. I want to get out front here with these concepts of groupings so that you would understand these other rules we'll describe in lesson 23. So that concludes this lesson.